In the room we have myself, Kathy Canham, and
I'm Wanda Boldrith-Ames. We're sharing a camera, so we're going to be like, nudging each other over.
And Terry Steins is here offering technical support. So welcome to our informational meeting today. We will definitely have a Q&A at the end, so let's get started.
Okay. So first of all, we want to say we are super excited about this opportunity. We have been dabbling with and learning about illustrative math curriculum resource. It's an open source resources, which means it's free to the public. It's open and available for teachers and school districts to implement. It's also been designed specifically to meet the Common Core standards, and so it was written specifically for the Common Core standards, not a resource that was sort of retrofitted for Common Core. And it's also designed with the mathematical practices in mind, and so with high levels of mathematical thinking and discourse and connections across content areas in mathematics. And so it's one that we found to really highly meet the Common Core standards, but also be very supportive of teachers in creating the classroom environment and the classroom discourse that helps kids think deeply about the mathematics. We're excited to be able to have this pilot, and we're very grateful to the Public Education Department who has provided some funds for us to be able to do this. This is sponsored by both Mathematically Connected Communities, which is at NMSU. We are a grant project, if you're not familiar with us, that provides professional development across the state. We are a K-12 initiative, and we support schools in implementing the Common Core standards and the mathematical practices and really the research around how kids best learn mathematics. And the Public Education Department is partnering with us to provide this opportunity for schools to pilot these open source resources that have been highly aligned with Common Core. So what does this pilot mean? It means we're able to select 10 to 12 schools across the state who would like to implement fully illustrative mathematics. And what PED is able to provide is to cover the cost of subs or stipends for teachers to participate in professional learning. They're also providing travel expenses for the teachers and principals, because if we have people from across the state, we're going to have to provide the PD in locations that is most centralized, but it is going to mean that some people will have to travel. But the PED will be picking up that cost for us. They're also able to provide funds for materials, and so let's say that you don't have all the materials in order to implement the open source curriculum, and that could be simple things like protractors and geometry tools and compasses and that sort of thing. It could also be things like big graph paper, because we know if we have butcher paper that's kind of in a graphical format, that's really nice for kids to be able to have conversations as a classroom. There is funding for the manipulatives and funding for teacher stipends or subs, or a combination of those things. And so just the funding is set aside, so it's about $1,000 per teacher. So that's what PED will provide. And what MC² does is we're going to help design the professional development. And so we're going to offer 3 days of professional development throughout the school year. The first one will be in August, the next one will be around October, November, and then another one in early spring. It's to help teachers understand the format of the curriculum resource, how to implement. We'll also be doing lots of mathematics so that teachers can engage in the mathematics before they're teaching in the classroom with these resources, and helping understand what are the instructional routines, really the nuances of implementing well, so we can help children really think deeply and talk about the mathematics that they're learning. So we'll have these series of 2-day workshops 3 times during the academic year. Starting in August. We'll have also online follow-up, and so we want to be able to connect with teachers in between. We know they may have some questions regarding implementation. They may want to connect with other professionals at their grade level who are implementing and share ideas, and so we're going to have this online follow-up really to build a network across the state of teachers who are implementing and support them in the day-to-day questions that they have and needs that they have for implementation. And what we're going to be doing as well, we're going to be gathering some data on how's it going for teachers in terms of their implementation, how's it going for kids, and we'll be sharing that data across sites to say, what are we learning about this implementation? So we talked about what PED provides and what MC² provides, and so the question you might be wondering about is, what is a school commitment? And What we are looking for is that schools who are committed to implementing the curriculum over 2 years. We know in the first year of implementation, there's a lot to learn. We're getting into some nuts and bolts about implementation, and we know after a couple of years is when we really start to refine our practice and get great at implementing a new curriculum. And so that's why we're asking for a 2-year commitment, because it will take a couple years before we can really make sense of how the curriculum implementation is going for students. What we know is that it is rated well, and what we know from some schools that have implemented this past school year, that what they found is greater student engagement and an alignment to standards. And really what we're finding from teachers is that they're appreciating all the supports that are there for teachers and looking forward to another year of implementation. And so we're very confident that after 1 year that teachers are going to want to continue for a second year with IM. So we are also looking for full departments to implement, because we'd like to see really how does this work in a school when we have teachers who are able to talk with each other about implementation. There's alignment of what's happening across grades and an alignment as they move from 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade. And so we're not looking for individual teachers who are curious about implementation. We're really looking for schools who are committed to full implementation. Now at the high school level, what we're ready to support teachers in an Algebra 1 section. So we know you have a lot of 9th graders and 10th graders who are in Algebra 1, and so we'd like to pilot with schools that would like their whole Algebra 1 department to be implemented, or at the minimum 80%. The school would also agree to providing access to classrooms and coaching. And so while we don't have a large staff to go to all the schools, we do anticipate being able to visit schools, visit with teachers, work with them in a PLC on occasion, and also through our online support system. And so we want to have a good relationship and partnership with schools, and that's when we say we would like access to being able to go to schools and classrooms. The other thing that the school would be responsible for is providing any print materials. Now, all these open source resources are available online. And so we know a lot of teachers who don't print a lot of materials. They project the student lessons and questions, and then students respond to those questions in their journal. But sometimes there is going to be print materials that are required, or some teachers really just their style of teaching, they really like to have the piece of paper on the student's desk. And so we're asking schools to commit to providing the paper and the copy ability for teachers to be able to print materials.
I'm going to answer one of the questions that came up at this point. IM is supported on 3 different platforms. In the middle school, Open Up Resources also has Spanish versions. So the question was, what about materials in Spanish for dual language? Again, those print materials would be the school commitment, but know that the Open Up resource has that in Spanish.
Okay.
Another point of clarifying, we do want schools to have, the middle schools, their whole math department. We will support Algebra 1 in middle schools as well. The 80% is, we want a good portion of your teachers to attend the training. You don't have to have 100% of the teachers commit to come to the training. But at the high school, we do want your entire Algebra 1 commitment. And again, it's 80% of the teachers who are teaching Algebra 1 to be part of the training.
One thing can I add about that? So Spanish materials are fully available for the middle school.
Correct.
And they will eventually be available for Algebra 1, but we don't know exactly when that's going to be.
We do not have a confirmation of that for Algebra 1.
So we have a pretty quick turnaround because we want to select the schools here within the next couple of weeks. And so, but know that this opportunity is open to schools across New Mexico, middle and high schools. We have an application process that we're going to share with you here in a little bit, but it's a pretty simple process. There's a letter of intent, and that would be signed by the principal, and we could be the superintendent, but we just want to make sure your district administration knows that what the plan is and that they're on board as well. A brief justification, so no more than a page, just describing your staff and their commitment to being a part of this pilot. And why does your school want to be a part of this pilot program is what you'll be telling us in the justification. And we have an online application that would take maybe, 5 or 10 minutes to complete with just some basic information about your school.
We will provide you with a sample letter of intent. There are 2 versions. There's a high school version which says that your Algebra 1 teachers will participate, and that's the one that's being shown right now. And then there is a middle school version. It's very similar. Please put it on your own letterhead and modify it as you see fit.
So basically what it does, it kind of reiterates what what the school commitment is.
Terry can also show you the application, what it will look like. Again, have your letter of intent ready to upload, have your short justification describing your commitment to the project ready to upload first, and then it's really basic information, contact and so forth. And then I think we have a slide that shows all of the questions on it.
The application will be open right after this webinar. Just to recap, the application itself will give your school district name, who the contact person will be, the grade levels that are intending to implement IM, just reassuring that your school is willing to commit to a 2-year implementation. Then you have approval from your district administrator to apply for this pilot. Since the turnaround is quick, we have a place there that says yes, no, or not yet. And so if it's a not yet, please be honest about that, and then let us know when you do have approval. And that you anticipate your math department being fully staffed. And so we know that some schools really are having difficulty with vacancies right now. What we would like to do is work with teachers who are planning to be there for the next couple of years. And if you can just, even in the letter or just in the application, let us know about your retention rate for teachers. We'd also like to know if you have regularly scheduled meetings or PLCs, and if there are ways for us to connect with teachers during the PLC. So how to apply? The deadline will be Wednesday, July 24th. We'll start reviewing applications on Thursday. And so our hope is the following week, we'd be able to let people know if they are part of the pilot or not. So you'll be notified the week of July 29th. We will begin to communicate with teachers right away. We are looking at an August professional development day, and we will have to talk with the selected schools. What we're thinking about right now is possibly a Saturday, Sunday, 2-day. One, it allows teachers to get the most of the stipend money in their pocket. It might alleviate some of the stress of trying to find subs, but we'll be talking to the selected schools to think about the best plan of action for that. We will be gathering data throughout, and those will be primarily through surveys for teachers and students.
We have a bunch of questions in the queue already. And Shafiq from the PED, Shafiq Chowdhury, should be unmuted as well in case he wants to on these.
First question, what about charters that are a department of one?
Departments of one are easy to get collaboration and commitment, so yes, they're definitely eligible to apply.
And Geometry and Algebra 2 use other programs while Algebra 1 uses IM?
Yes, the intent is that we will support high schools in their Algebra 1 implementation, and then Geometry and Algebra 2 will be up to the school choice.
Yeah, and IM would be available to Geometry and Algebra 2 as well if they want to dabble. Just the professional development will focus on Algebra 1.
Cost to schools for training, would that be per diem? I'm not sure if they mean the stipend.
I believe the intent is there is no cost to the school for the training.
We'll pay for hotel, and Shafiq, you may have to answer this one as well. Go ahead.
So for teachers that are participating in the pilot for attending the 6 days of training, teachers who are traveling 60 miles or over, or 60 miles or more away from the venue for the training, we will provide mileage reimbursement and lodging for those teachers. And we talked about the stipend.
We did talk about the stipend. Yes, they would paid a stipend for each day that they participated in the professional development, up to $1,000 for the year.
Yes.
For participating in the PD and implementing.
Yeah. What the PED has done, just so the hotel is set up for them, so it's not a reimbursement basis for a hotel. That will be covered when they arrive.
Next question, would schools be expected to use the IM curriculum exclusively, or can they utilize other resources as well?
The IN curriculum would be the main curriculum that they would be implementing. So when we think about full implementation, there are 8 different units within the curriculum, and so we would really work to get to as many of those units as possible, because then we know that they're really having access to all of the standards for their grade band. And so if there's something that people wanted to add in as a resource, I think that would depend on the amount of time that you have set aside for mathematics. I would look at the timing. There might not be a lot of time to add other resources in. We don't want schools to say we're going to pick and choose lessons and activities that we like out of IM. We want schools that are really thinking about full implementation.
Okay, next question. Is this initiative aligned to the IMP approach to math?
It's definitely aligned to IMP, and I think of Interactive, the math program, the high school one, in that it promotes the mathematical discourse and really rich problem solving that happens in IMP. What's different is IMP is an integrated curriculum that includes algebra and geometry integrated, and the way IM is designed is really in more the traditional sequence of Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. So yes, in terms of teaching philosophy of student engagement and discourse, but different in terms of the lessons and the integration of content.
Shafiq, I'm going to defer this question to you as well. Can the $500 for materials be used to purchase the student print materials?
Yes, if a school chooses to utilize $500 to purchase student materials, that would be the part the PED can cover. And then if there's additional cost above the 500, that would be incumbent on upon the school or the district to take.
Another question, if you only have one class per grade level, do you need to implement all grades at the same time, or can you build, for example, 6th and 7th, then add 8th the next year?
Our preference would be, we would think about implementing multiple grades at the same time. And we know that some schools have jumped into implementing 7th and 8th grade, even though they didn't have IM previously. And overall, it's gone well. So our preference would be schools that want to implement fully. Now, we know we have some schools that have already committed, like we have one school district that is committed to doing, they're piloting another interactive program in 8th grade, and so they're really looking at 6th and 7th grade. I would just explain that in the application, that full implementation for that school would mean 6th and 7th grade.
Can you implement only 9th grade up?
Well, so like we're imagining that some schools, they begin in 9th grade, and so if a high school wants to submit an application, that's not dependent on the middle school having done IM. So yes, it's possible to go 9th grade up.
Wondering about any information on the rollout for the elementary curriculum.
It won't be available for a couple of years, is my understanding. They're still in the process of writing. And there was a question about accessing the curriculum, and we can send you some links, because it's available through Kendall Hunt, through McGraw-Hill, through Open Up Resources, and you could even go to the Illustrative Mathematics. So there are different ways to access the curriculum, and we'll send some links on how to do that.
I think maybe we'll even insert a slide.
Okay.
So when we send you this PowerPoint, we'll have a slide with those 3 links.
Perfect.
What schools from the Southwest area are using this curriculum?
I know that several schools in Las Cruces have piloted it this year. I think several in Gadsden piloted it this year. I believe T or C, so there are several.
IM does have curriculum for geometry and algebra 2. Someone is
Asking, correct.
It's clarifying.
So the high school curriculum at Kendall Hunt is due to come out, I believe, tomorrow. And it is an Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. The LearnZillion platform, I believe, just has the first 3 units of those courses, and they'll be rolling them out in the next few weeks. The Open Up Resources does not have the high school. That is only a middle school curriculum.
What assessments are built into the program, and are they aligned to
Tamela. Shafiq, do you happen to know what? I'm afraid I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, so Tamela is the transitional math and ELA assessment. That's what Tamela is. It's the replacement for the park assessment that was given. It was the replacement assessment for park this past school year. And I can answer the first part of that question. So at this point, an RFP has gone out from the Assessment Bureau to vendors on a new math and ELA assessment. And that's all the information we have at this point.
There are assessments built into the program. They have, I'm speaking from memory right at the moment. They have kind of a pre-assessment and summative assessments. Let me defer that, and we'll do a little bit of a thoughtful summary of this, and we'll write a better answer to that question.
Can I add one more thing? The IM curriculum and the new math ELA assessment will both be aligned to the Common Core state standards.
Correct. So definitely there.
Yeah.
IM is very closely aligned to the Common Core, and if Shafiq is assuring us that the new Tamela will be aligned to the Common Core, so we can make some good assessments that those will be aligned.
Next question, do you recommend geometry first, then algebra 2, or vice versa?
I believe that it is written for geometry and then algebra 2. There are very extensive alignment documents. So I believe if you make a choice to do algebra 2 and then geometry, you will have good information to make those informed decisions.
Approximately how much additional to the $500 for instructional materials might there be?
The PD can provide up to $500. For example, if you decide to purchase the student materials, we can provide $500, and then the remainder would be incumbent upon the school or district to take on.
So I believe the question is along the lines of how much do you anticipate? What I'll do is I'll send a query out to a couple of people who have implemented this and see if my assumption is correct. I have not heard any stories of the field that there was a big investment for implementing this. I do not believe it will be much more above the $500, and that will be $500 per teacher. So if you have 4 teachers, you would have up to $2,000 for materials.
Next question, I only have 1 grade level interested in implementing this pilot. Would this be a viable option?
I guess I would encourage you to apply. It is not really the intent of the pilot. Make a good case as to why you think this 1 grade level should be considered, and we will consider it. I do believe we're more looking for schools, middle schools, to implement all grade levels, and then again starting with the high school in Algebra 1. They got a quote from Kendall Hunt for Algebra 1. It's looks like $23 per student. I believe that's for the print material, and then looks like just short of $68 for teacher materials. I believe that would be the print copies of things. I do think Open Up Resources for the middle school has a couple of kits for manipulatives and such.
On our website, we do have a page set up for this project. And if you just go to the MC² website, you'll see right here, it says programs. And if you click on the pull down, it'll show you, and the open sources right here, and it'll take you to this page. And then that's where we're going to post all the information that we just covered today.
Just to recap, we won't have the application link live on that webpage because we want people to have attended this webinar before we have 1 question that came up. Do we know the approximate cost for geometry? I'm going to make an assumption it's on the order of the same as Algebra 1. I don't know that. We might be able to find that for you quickly. And I believe that is it for today. Thank you very much.